Hello and welcome to another episode of the Saints FC podcast. And I suppose it's a little bit of a new tradition, but this week we have another new person on the show. I still have Tom with me. He's on my left. Hello,
Tom. Everyone. Hello.
And we have another chap here over to my far left. Jason, welcome onto the show. How's it going?
Good. Thanks for having me on. I'm pretty excited to be here.
Yeah, you're welcome. So those regular listeners to the show, you'll probably remember we occasionally get rather lengthy emails from across the pond from the United States of America. And they tend to come from Jason. Jason messaged me in one of his long emails and told me that he was heading over to Southampton for the Bournemouth game. So I thought, whilst he was staying in the relatively local area, certainly more local than Florida, which is where you normally reside, we might as well get you on and hear about your experiences of your first Saints game. So I mean, it was only 4 weeks ago we were listening to Matthew talk about.
Yeah, that was different. That was a different experience.
Yeah, it's totally different experience. So I can't wait to hear your first Saints game experience, and we've tried not to talk about it too much, whilst we're getting ready for the show, so that we can just hear it for the first time from Jason a little bit later. I suppose let's go through the kind of general admin stuff. If you want to email, like Jason does, it's saintsfcpodcast@gmail.com. Because Jason's here, we don't have that many emails to go through this week. Apart from Ryan Borowski, he emailed in just to ask if we'd still do the podcast if we're going to be in the Championship.
Yeah, 100%.
Which we would, but we're not going to be in the Championship, right?
No, it's a moot point.
Yeah. And I think that was it. That was it really from the emails. Oh, actually, that's not totally true. I also have an apology to make to Nick. Nick listened to the last episode and he likes to listen to it either at the breakfast table with his kids or sometimes in his antique shop. And those of you that listened to the last episode, you'll remember we had our good old friend, William Porteous Blythe.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
The name and vocabulary of a pirate.
Yes. So, yeah, apologies for all the swearing that we had from William. So he's not here today, so, I mean, we'll try and keep things a little bit tidier, I think, in terms of language.
He's just a very passionate guy.
Yeah. But, so, yeah, apologies to Nick for that. We'll try and keep things a little bit cleaner today. I also, one of the things that I tend to do, I always say, email us in, go on Twitter. You can also leave comments on the YouTube. So we try and video these episodes for the Ugly Inside YouTube channel. And we actually get quite a lot of YouTube comments. So I've dragged some out here because I don't give the YouTube commenters that much of an airing. So I think, let's go with it. I don't know. Do we start with this one? I mean, we're going to ruin the language thing straight away.
Yeah, lie to everyone immediately.
Yeah, I think we are. Beep. Could not believe how we totally fell apart when Giroud came on. This is talking about the Chelsea game. Yeah. So the Saints losing to Chelsea. This comes from Dave Beach. He comments quite a lot. Someone take out his legs before he even comes on. Every single time he destroys us.
Predictable.
It is so predictable. And, what a surprise when we got to the semi-final, he scores again. Anyway, we'll get to that in the future. Graham, he says he agrees with the disappointment and sentiments, but Saints will not retain top players whilst the club is seen as a stepping stone to top clubs. I think he's probably right about that. It's players' agents stirring up discontent within Saints, better players and big clubs able to pay the ridiculous wages that woo our players away, and only when Saints have a much larger worldwide fan base. For the business side to prosper, will big club status be achieved? Well, we're starting to get a few fans from abroad now. I'm looking across to one on my left-hand side.
Second American
second American that we've had on the show this season. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you've got any views on how you think we would break that market. I mean, presumably it's going to be key just to be in the Premier League, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's potential. I mean, the NFL is kind of going through some turmoil, I think, with some different things that have happened. And so I think there's potential for, although what really hurts is the U.S. didn't make the World Cup. So yeah. I think that's going to set back soccer viewership in the U.S. quite a bit. So
do you think, yeah, because I suppose you get, I mean, there's not that many good American players in the Premier League at the moment, are there? But we've had our few. I mean, who have your particular favourites been in Premier League era?
Is it Brian McBride?
Brian McBride, yeah.
Because his name sounded like a fake footballer's name.
Yeah.
Tim Howard, the goalkeeper. He was great.
Yeah, he was good.
I mean, I'm going to go for a real blast from the past. Do you remember Alexi Lalas?
Yeah, with
Did
the
he play for
beard.
Coventry City?
And he was also the singer in Spin Doctors with their famous hit Two Princes.
Two Princes. Wasn't it Cotton Eye Joe they're famous? Or is that different?
No, that's Rednecks.
Oh, that's Rednecks. Oh, sorry. Anyway, let's move on. Oh, this is interesting. Simon Hill, this is a comment about William Porteous Blythe. This man is insane. Matthew Barnes says, relegated teams always have a poor defence. That's why we're down. Yeah, well, I guess on us. Not all the reviews of William Porteous Blythe the Pirate were negative. So Nate Dogg, he says, John, get Will to come on more often. He speaks his mind and shows genuine passion like a real politician. And then he does lots of laughy faces. I'll come on as well if you need me. Well, Nate, let's get you on. Why not? Also, totally agree with Will. We need to protest as fans. This board has been taking us for a ride the last 3 to 4 years. Problems that have led to Southampton's current predicament caused by the complete gross incompetence and mismanagement of our board. We need some serious changes upstairs, more accountability from the end. You know what? I think if we'd lost to Bournemouth, this would have been a really big talking point, but it's amazing how quickly things changed, isn't it? You know, all it takes is a win.
There's optimism a little bit. There's a glimmer of hope.
Yeah. And John Kedwood says, no Europe for the beardy Remainer in the foreseeable future, just Brentford and Blackburn, I'm afraid. So
I thought that might be me. And then I was like, no, it's William Porteous Blythe.
Yeah, it's William Porteous Blythe.
Also, it's me.
Yeah. I mean, there we go. Let's just try and keep the politics off this show. I think, it's hard enough, like, going through all the arguments between different Saints fans without bringing politics into this.
There's too much politics in football anyway, isn't there?
Although having said that, I was on the Total Saints podcast yesterday, which I think is now out, talking about safe standing with Councillor Pope, who is a Southampton independent councillor, campaigning for safe standing. So that got quite political anyway. But so there you go. I'll save the politics for other people's podcasts.
Thanks,
John. On the Matthew Markstone episode, yes, lads, it's great to see my favourite Two Saints podcast collaborate. Enough respect there. What we're talking about, Laetitia episode. Laetitia's a top bloke. Yeah, of course he is. Thanks for letting us hear this. Wish it was the full show though. Very enjoyable. You should have heard the stuff. I'll tell you what. If you thought William Porteous Blythe was bad at swearing, Matt Laetitia, I had to cut a lot of stuff out of that episode.
Quite fruity language.
Yeah, I mean, he had quite a lot of fruity language anyway, but I mean, some of the stories were just pretty outrageous. So if you ever see me at a Saints game, just come up and ask me directly, and I'll tell you what he said about certain people. It's very funny. Good listen. Anyway, should we just get on to the normal stuff? So, the last show with William was before the Leicester game. So, I mean, we should kind of review Saints versus Leicester, but, I mean, what was there to review in that game?
One shot on target.
Yeah.
We got a point.
It felt, it did feel an awful lot like we were watching Claude Puel again, didn't it?
Yeah, and that's history repeating there, isn't it? At Leicester. It's not an exciting game, but too often this season we've lost those games 1-0. We have, and at least this was we ground out a point.
Yeah.
And, right, Leicester aren't playing particularly well at the moment. They are a very good team, and they had Mahrez and they had Vardy, and I think most Saints fans would have taken a point before that game.
Nice to keep them quiet. Did you get a chance to see this, or was this whilst you're heading out? Or
I did see it.
Yeah.
Not much stands out. I mean, it was a 0-0 draw.
Yeah.
But it seemed to me that was the game plan all along. Get a point no matter the cost, and then kind of build from there. So.
I mean, it certainly did look like Mark Hughes was targeting, a point there, safe point, kind of slowly, which is odd because at the point going into that game, it really felt like it was one of these must-win games. But
maybe it's just about not losing.
Yeah.
After the crushing disappointment of Arsenal and Chelsea, maybe it was just about consolidating and showing them that they don't have to lose.
And giving the defence and a goalkeeper a chance to keep a clean sheet as well. I think it's not something that we've done for a while. Anyway, so I mean, I think we can move on from that, and then let's bring up Wembley because it is always fun to go to Wembley. I was quite fortunate with this. I got my me and my brother a ticket through the kind of normal means, and then I actually ended up getting a couple of corporate tickets through work, which was quite fortunate, which meant my dad was able to come. So he flew all the way over from Portugal to watch Saints. He has seen Saints before, so he knows exactly what he's getting himself into. He's seen Saints, this season before as well. It's always great to go to Wembley. We watched my sister and her fiance running in the London Marathon. They both did very well despite the really warm weather. And we headed up to Wembley. And I was feeling actually quite optimistic in a weird way, because I felt kind of after the Premier League game where we'd gone 2 goals up, we showed that we could get the better of Chelsea for most of the game. But it was a different kettle of fish, wasn't it? Chelsea were up for this one.
Yeah, and I think they made their quality show, and players that we kind of did a number on in the last game, even like Kante, at St Mary's, he wasn't really visible. And only when Giroud came on, and he did what he does against us every time. But yeah, the FA Cup was different. Their game management was much better. They bullied us a lot more. They wanted it more. And I think we tried, went brave with a 2 up front, and it just didn't work.
No.
And it was almost like the sacrifice of putting 2 up front was to have a completely defensive midfield, which then negated having anyone up front, because we just couldn't get the ball to anyone. And like Charlie Austin, Shane Long, the ball wouldn't stick at their feet. And first half, I think we were glad to come out of that 0-0.
Yeah, I mean, I just got up into Club Wembley. My dad and I were having a pint before the game when I finally managed to get enough signal on my phone to see the team lineups, and I was just absolutely baffled by it. So we had the 2 up front, 5 across the back, which I was expecting, but then 3 defensive midfielders just seemed really, really bizarre. And I just thought, what's he doing here? And I think I made some tweet kind of a comment. It's like, has Mark Hughes kind of figured out football? Because you don't go into a football match with no creative midfield whatsoever, do you?
And it was weird. I mean, did you get to watch it in the US? Or?
Yeah, I did. I saw it. And I thought the same thing as you did, and I saw your tweet. I thought it was pretty funny. But I think you saw in that what happened a little bit in the Bournemouth match, which was making Lamina a little bit more of an offensive player, trying to get him to push forward and be a little more creative. And I think in hindsight, that was pretty important to do that in that match.
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't really work out against Chelsea, but I think it set the stage for Bournemouth a little bit, maybe.
I guess maybe he was even using it as a bit of an experiment. Could this be something that he could use in the run-in, which I think Mark Hughes probably is more concerned about?
But then he kind of tried it as well in the West Ham game.
Yeah.
The infamous West Ham game. We went 5 at the back, 2 up front, except with Gabbiadini and Austin, and that just didn't work at all.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of players that are quite maligned by a lot of people, me included, like Redmond and maybe Tadic. Is that one drink?
Yeah, that's one shot of vodka there. Yeah.
That maybe are really important to the team, but you don't notice actually until they're not there.
No. I mean, let's go back to the formation. So, right, my dad and I have been going to football games together for years and years and years. And the first ever football game he took me to was Bristol Rovers versus Tranmere Rovers. And Bristol Rovers were in, I think, Division 2 or Division 3. It was before it was all called the Premier League and stuff. And they were terrible. They had a central defender called Andy Tilson. And this is back in the kind of like early 90s, when football players had like a special talent, especially in the lower leagues. They might be good at one thing and nothing else. And Andy Tilson was a man who could head the ball the entire length of the pitch. It was phenomenal. He'd warm up with the goalkeeper was practicing his goal kicks, and Andy Tilson would head them straight back to his hands, from the halfway line and beyond. And Bristol Rovers used to play really ugly long ball football, apart from a very brief moment when they had Marcus Stewart and
Marcus Stewart.
I can't remember the name of the other guy. He went on to play for Crystal Palace. It comes to me in a
Andy
bit.
Johnson?
No, it wasn't Andy Johnson. But we were watching Saints throughout that first half, and it just felt like Mark Hughes had adopted Bristol Rovers tactics. There was no creative midfield. It was like 2 up front, 8 men behind the ball, and like every time we get it, hoof it up to Shane Long, hope that someone spills it, hope that Shane Long will beat the man to it. And you can see even Shane Long was getting a bit bored of trying by the end of the first half. But it was a bit of a miracle that we were in at 0-0, because Chelsea had such good players. Eden Hazard was well on it.
Yeah, I mean, I watched the Swansea game yesterday, and Eden Hazard is it's just like he just sees space. He makes space. So if you look at how effective he is compared to, and I just said you shouldn't criticize him, but like a Redmond, where like, and how much he hurts you. Every single thing he does, he hurts. And Kante is the same. And yeah, we couldn't really handle it. And I think it was a miracle, to be honest, going to 0-0 at half time.
How did you feel at half time at 0-0? Oh my God, we're
grateful.
still in this.
You're absolutely grateful.
Yeah.
I mean, it was because like you, I was hopeful going into the match, but pretty quickly you realize this could get ugly fast.
Yeah.
And so being 0-0 at halftime is just, you're just grateful.
And also, not conceding with Giroud on the pitch is almost
for a
like
full
winning
45 minutes.
We should probably get like a European place for that or something alone.
Didn't last very long, though, did it? I mean, I'm going to have to admit that, I mean, the service, despite the fact that Club Wembley has all of these extra bars and stuff, and it's supposed to be the kind of posh seats and people pay a fortune to be in there or whatever, the guys behind the bar were so terribly slow that like I was
like local people. That's what I always find. It's like normal kids, like local kids.
Yeah, and I was trying to drink that pint so fast. I had about 3 minutes to drink it before the second half started, and I failed, and it took me about 3.5 minutes to drink it. And by the time that half minute had passed, I came out and I could see us picking the ball out of the net.
The inevitable had happened.
Yeah, and then actually watching the replay back on the big screen, because I missed it by a few seconds. They had it on the big screen afterwards. I mean, that was incredible from Giroud. I expect Giroud to score goals against us where he's kind of like the last man at the back post and somehow Cedric Suarez is marking him. I don't expect him to leave 4 Saints players on their arses, like in the box.
He did that scorpion kick goal. He's a surprisingly skillful player. He's a brilliant player. Like, he's a player that would be the difference between like Saints being where they are now and Saints if they'd somehow managed to convince him to move to the South Coast and somehow found the money.
Hang on. Should we talk about finding the money? How much does Giroud cost Chelsea?
10 million or something, 12 million.
How much did Carrillo cost Southampton?
19.
Yeah.
So we could have chucked 7 extra million quid at Giroud.
I actually think it was a little bit more than that. I'm just going to look this up to confirm. I think it might have been about 15 or 17 million.
What, for Giroud?
Yeah.
But he's worth every penny of it, isn't he?
Yeah.
In a world where Carrillo is worth 19, and I think Carrillo is the answer to a pub quiz question, isn't he, in the future? Giroud is worth every penny, and he punished Saints, and yeah, he just did us again. What can you say?
Yeah. So I mean, I couldn't really complain about that goal. £18 million. So
About the same amount.
About the same price. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, Giroud versus Carrillo. I mean, they're kind of like, you buy Carrillo wanting to get a Giroud type, don't you? Someone who can head the ball, someone who's got a good touch, someone who can bring players into the game, hold up the ball, bring in your creative midfielders. So, Chelsea have got Giroud and Hazard, and they've got
Kante as well.
Yeah, and Kante.
Who is ostensibly a defensive midfielder, but again, like Hazard, just finds space and finds people every single time.
And Willian, he doesn't even start all of their games because
but it's a genius.
But it's just brilliant.
Yeah, and is like first choice for the Brazil team.
Yeah, I mean, you look at it, and obviously Chelsea, you'd expect to beat us. And I remember chatting to some Chelsea fans recently, and they said, the team that you saw play at St Mary's was not up for the fight. The team, which is frightening considering they get 3 goals in 8 minutes against us. But he's like, the team that will come out in the semi-final will be much better. And he was bang on. He was totally right. And they could have had a lot more goals. But then it's the funny thing about football, isn't it? Because we've got 2 more goals in this game that I want to talk about. One which I feel should have been disallowed and one which I feel shouldn't have been disallowed. And this is where football is won and lost on fine margins. Right.
So, one you think shouldn't have been disallowed.
Shouldn't have been disallowed as a Southampton goal.
It's so insane. And I was watching at home, and by this time I was watching my dad. We'd had a skinful. But like, and then like is it Mike Dean who's on BT Sports comes out and says, once the goal, apparently in the 6-yard box, if anyone touches the goalkeeper, it's a foul, which seems completely and utterly insane.
But football's a contact sport, and people are always touching the goalkeeper.
But the reaction in the studio of, I think it was Gary Neville and Thierry Henry, I can't remember who it was just like, this is an insane rule. If that is actually a rule and no one seems to know about it, it was insane.
Did Mike Dean just make it up?
Well, I looked for it in the laws of the game. I couldn't see it. And Charlie Austin, all he does, like, the goalkeeper drops it.
Yeah.
you got to feel that, like, what are they doing? And also, and I made a point about VAR at the time, and I really do believe it. The referees seem to be really arrogant, and they seem to be really like officious, and they're a bit like school prefects, aren't they? Like, and the problem is like you rely on they're the only people who can call for VAR. So what they're essentially doing is you're relying on someone who's really arrogant and thinks he always knows best to admit that actually I don't know what happened there. So actually I need to go to a third party to tell me. And instead, Mark Hughes should have, like in tennis.
Well, like in tennis, you have your call.
He should be able to call it.
Yeah.
And someone on Twitter said to me, well, that's no good because Mark Hughes is 60 yards away. But Charlie Austin can run over and say,
I didn't touch him.
I didn't touch him. Like, that needs to be reviewed.
Yeah,
like,
that's our golden ticket. That's our one review this half. Whatever.
Yeah, and you get 2 a game, whatever it is. And I think the problem is otherwise you're relying on refs, and refs are just arrogant, aren't they?
Yeah. Jason, you're looking like you're about to jump in here. You've got a view on this.
Well, about the rule, Letitia got in an argument on Twitter with everybody, basically, in the world, it seemed like. And
he does that a lot, doesn't he?
Yeah, and it's amazing. But he said it's not a rule. He made it up. And he actually took a photo of the rule book and put it in a tweet and said, it's not in the rule book. It's not a foul. It should have been a goal.
Yeah.
Which,
I looked for it. I couldn't see it.
Yeah.
Laws ago.
Does Mike Dean just hate us? He makes up rules.
It was so weird. I think that the referees, so they all got to stick together.
Yeah.
They're all part of a gang. They all probably see each other quite regularly, so they're probably not in the interests of slagging each other off. But it was a baffling
and let's
decision.
be honest, if Mike Dean starts slagging off other refs, then it's all gonna come back to hurt him much worse, isn't it, than the average ref?
So it was a really strange, really disappointing decision, and it goes to show, as you say, the fine margins. But for me, it wasn't a foul.
It wasn't for me. It obviously wasn't for Jason. Obviously wasn't for Matthew Letitia. It was for Mike Dean, but he's got an updated version of the rule book that hasn't been issued yet. Totally bizarre. And so the other one. So one of the goals was reviewed by VAR, and that was Chelsea's second goal.
I didn't know that. Did that go to VAR? I did not know that.
I'm pretty sure it went to VAR because the goal happened. So the cross came in. Morata pushed Hoots in the back, and Hoot was on the floor, and then the cross came in, and he had the free header basically. And I said to my dad, I was just like, that push was so blatant. If this goes to VAR, it's not going to be a goal. And then they did I'm pretty sure I saw someone do the square, but maybe I imagined it. I haven't watched the highlights back. I didn't watch it on TV. I was just there, and it was just all happening around me.
See, I don't think it was a push. I think Hoyt needs to either leave the Premier League or he needs to really understand what the Premier League is, and he needs to toughen up. And I don't think he was pushed. I think there's a hand that goes on the back. But Hoyt's reaction for a man who's 6'4" and probably 15, 16 stone is baffling. If there is anything, there is a light hand on the back. And Hoyt got pushed off the ball by Lukaku, didn't he, early in the season, and you'd think he would learn. But for me, actually, I didn't think that was a foul.
So, what I found quite interesting about this is they showed replays of the goal on the big screen in Wembley, and in none of the replays could you see the push. And it's because it happened so long before the ball actually reached them that I don't think it was caught on any of the cameras. And so I think maybe after that you maybe saw the remnants of the push. Because when I was watching it, so our club Wembley seats were in the Chelsea end. So this goal happened right in front of me. We were right behind the goal, kind of midway up the stand. And it looked really, really clear to me. But then on all the video replays, it was the video. By the time the camera came round to Hoot and Morata, it already happened.
It didn't. I think it'd be one of those ones. If that had been Charlie Austin on Azpilicueta and it had been and it had not been given because it had been a push, I think we'd be going mad. And to our earlier point about the goalkeeper, it is a contact sport.
Yeah,
these are big men. They've got to be able to lay a hand on each other.
Yeah.
So I almost think if we can't have Charlie Austin's, I think they're almost. I don't know. Yeah, it doesn't really. Does it make sense? I don't know.
Well, I think it would make sense if they both counted, or if neither of them counted.
Yeah.
But it's pretty gutting that the fact that we've had 2 trips to Wembley and very big important cup matches. We've We've had the introduction of VAR, and it just hasn't stopped us having a goal being wrongly disallowed.
If you think, like, why is VAR is so weird the way they're doing it, this piecemeal way of doing it. And if Saints go down, and I think there's still a strong chance we will, you'll look back at the season, you'll say, what were the moments that matter? And you could say the Alonso challenge on Shane Long, that moment mattered. And you could say the Watford handball.
Yeah, the Watford handball goal.
All right, you could Alonso gets sent off, Chelsea might still win. That handball gets denied, Saints definitely win.
I guess the other thing, though, is, to be honest, if we're going to really start dissecting the season, and probably we should wait for the season review episode, but actually the biggest wrong decision for us this season has been the appointment of Pellegrini. Or if not the appointment, if the appointment was right and they saw enough from his CV and his previous performances as manager to justify giving him a chance, it was probably not dismissing him after the Palace game.
After the Spurs game.
Yeah,
I think Palace for sure. Spurs 100%.
Yeah. Anyway, we can get onto that in our kind of final episodes of the season. Overall, despite my misgivings about the officials, Chelsea were just so much better than us. I think even if Charlie Austin's goal had been allowed,
Charlie Austin hit the post.
Yeah, if Morata's goal had been disallowed. Sometimes you win those games just because you get the rub of the green. It was kind of one of those games, I think if it had gone into extra time, Chelsea would have beaten us. If it had gone to penalties, I expect Chelsea would have beaten us as well.
I think one thing it just seems to be, though, is that big teams get decisions when it matters. And I don't think there is some grand conspiracy where at the start of the season they get all the referees in a room and they say, no matter what happens, Chelsea, Man City, Arsenal, Spurs, Man United, they're okay. Yeah. I don't think that happens at all. But I do think that there is a... do you really want to be the guy that at the end of the game Conte is going mad about?
Or Mourinho's?
Or do you want to be the guy that, like a Pellegrino or Mark Hughes, is going mad about? You don't want that, do you?
And we're too polite anyway.
Yeah, definitely.
Teams make their own luck, right?
Yeah.
Good teams make good luck.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I mean, you look at the way how Fergie managed to manipulate referees in his favour. It's just incredible.
But he also had the best players.
Yeah.
It comes with
he manipulated everything into his favour, isn't he?
He had the best players. And then when he didn't have the best players towards the end, he was the best coach. He still managed to get that team to win the league.
Right, Saints actually won a game. We're 27 minutes into the recording. We still haven't started talking about that. So come on, let's get on to that. Right. Jason, tell us about your trip to England, about the trip to St. Mary's. This is the first time for you, so just relive the experience for our listeners.
It was pretty incredible. In America, you go to like an American football game, you have the tailgate, you barbecue, whatever, spend hours in the sun getting ready for the game.
People don't hang out in St. Mary's car park in the same way, do they?
No, we went to a pub. Go to the pub, and I had a BLT. Hamburgers, beers around, things like that. And it's interesting. It's pretty exciting. It isn't a tailgate, but I wouldn't say that it's inferior in any way, shape, or form. It was fun. So you get the anticipation. We actually got there pretty early, so the pub's empty, and then you just slowly start to see more and more people come in, and then everybody starts walking towards the stadium at the same time. Pretty exciting, and it was loud. I've been to stadiums with 85,000, 95,000 people. This was every bit as loud.
Yeah.
And you're right there on the pitch. I mean, it's amazing. You're not up in a stand. You're right there.
I'm going to rewind a little bit here. So, because I think one of the very important things about going to football in England is actually quite often it's the people that you go with. So tell us, how come you're a Southampton fan? Why are you going to a Saints game? And who are you going to the Saints game with?
That's fair. So I work in America. But we have a department in Maidenhead, England. And
I mean, that's an obvious place for an American company to have a department. Yeah. Exactly. I mean, why not
Absolutely.
Maidenhead?
Right. Yeah. But a friend of mine that I became friends with who worked in the Maidenhead office is a big Saints fan. So a couple years ago, I became more and more disenfranchised with different American sports. And I was like, I'll try this football thing, give it a shot. And I was like, well, might as well watch Southampton because I've got a friend that's a Southampton fan.
Good choice.
Yeah, and it was great. I mean, you start reading about the history. First thing I did, go to Wikipedia, read the whole article. I was like, this is great. This is great. I'm going to be a Southampton fan. So you immerse yourself pretty quickly. So So he and his family have been season ticket holders for over a decade. So they go to the match.
So you're there with your mate, all of his family.
Yep.
I mean,
his
several
parents and
generations.
his brother.
Yeah.
And so we're all there getting revved up a little bit for the match.
Yeah.
So, and they're not crazy fans. They just like going as a family.
Yeah.
They live in disparate parts of the country, so they meet up for the matches. But you go to that many matches, you're gonna be a fan. So
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're walking to the match pretty excited. I think we all thought we were going to lose. I mean, it's hard to think that you're actually going to win. I mean, you're still hopeful.
Yeah.
I don't think, as a Saints fan, I don't been to many games where I think you're going to win.
Yeah.
Like, you just don't.
Yeah.
Winning's a bonus.
Yeah.
But the fans were excited.
Yeah.
It was loud, pre-game. It's pretty loud. I don't guess they put the clappers out all the time, but they had the clappers in the seat.
Yeah.
And everyone's going crazy with the clappers. So it was pretty exciting, pretty electric atmosphere. It seemed like some sort of like playoff game or something like that. It was pretty exciting.
I think for Southampton, there is so much tension in this game just because we all knew how important it was. It really was last chance saloon. I think if we lost at home to Bournemouth, it would have been so hard to pick up the pieces afterwards.
Or even if we'd not won. I mean, I think even a draw would have been useless.
Pretty devastating.
Yeah, because it just would have it doesn't move us on in any way.
Yeah.
It's just another game gone.
And the interesting thing about Bournemouth and Saints is like some people are trying to kind of build this up as a South Coast derby. I mean, Tom, you probably remember kind of putting money in buckets to help save Bournemouth a few years ago.
We loaned them players.
Yeah,
I think Adam. We
I
bought
think
Adam Lallana,
yeah.
but I think Saints had a history of like loaning them players.
Yeah.
So I think it's one of those media.
Yeah.
Like if you're a Saints fan, there's only one derby.
Yeah.
And it's definitely not Bournemouth.
No. To be honest, I remember they used to read out when Bournemouth were a couple of divisions below. They'd read out the Bournemouth scores at half time because it was interesting. There'd be a cheer of
they'd read out the Pompey scores, but that would be a cheer if Pompey were losing.
Yeah, exactly. And
there's a cheer
if
they're winning.
Yeah, and cheer if Bournemouth were winning. So, but the Bournemouth fans seem to kind of like hype this up, and I wonder, did the Bournemouth fans seem totally up for it? They looked like they brought a lot of fans with them.
Yeah, they were. That's one of the things that's so surprising is the away fans have a big impact on the match as well. I mean, it's a small enough stand, and there's a big enough group of them that they were loud.
Yeah,
and you could hear them throughout the entire match.
I mean, to be honest, I think the away end in Southampton is probably the same size as the whole Vitality Stadium for Bournemouth. So that probably was the entire complement of Bournemouth fans. I mean, yeah. And they were good, were they? They made a lot of noise?
Yeah, very, very much so. I had a hard time making out some of their chants, but they were going at it for most of the match. So.
Yeah. And how did the Saints fans... I mean, tell me about the tension. Did it feel tense right from the start, or was it, was the atmosphere actually quite positive?
It seemed excited.
Yeah.
It seemed excited. I didn't feel... I mean, I felt nervous, and I don't know if other people did or not, but the atmosphere was pretty electric. Yeah. It was pretty positive, it seemed like eager anticipation, like something great may happen today. Which is good.
Yeah.
Because it did.
Okay. And then just, tell us about the start of the match. How did it go? What did you see? What did you notice about watching Premier League football for the first time in the flesh?
How is the difference watching it on TV?
It's fast. It's really fast. It's even more impressive how far they can kick a ball. But one of the things that struck me is the players aren't that big. I'm used to watching, American basketball or football, and they're not human. I mean, they're massive.
Yeah.
But these guys, they look normal size, but they're so fast. There's no doubt that they're amazing athletes, but their size isn't, because you're right there and you're next to them, like they're not. That struck me as kind of interesting. Maybe.
Yeah.
But
they're strong as well, aren't they?
Oh yeah, it's physical. It's definitely physical.
I think that's one of the things we've seen in recent years, isn't it? Like all of the players are hench.
Yeah.
Like they're all like ripped. Even if they're little.
Yeah.
Like Tadic.
Yeah.
Did I get it wrong again? It's a great example where he's not the biggest, but like when he takes his shirt off, which he does a lot, he is like ripped.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there was that meme of him as the Hulk, wasn't it, after he scored against Manchester United and tore his shirt off. And all right, well, I mean, let's get on to Tadic. I mean, was that the first major incident of the game?
goal.
The goal.
Yeah, I think it was.
Had McCarthy had his first foot save at that point?
Yeah, no. So McCarthy's against Van Dijk and Ake was after we were winning. I'm pretty sure. I think so.
That first foot save.
Yeah.
Sorry to skip ahead, but
it was a great goal.
Yeah. Yeah.
For Saints, it was the sort of goal that we
that we concede.
We can see regularly, yeah. Apart from the headers, there's the other goals we can see. It was a really good goal, and like Yoshida, good header. Redmond, brave, and then just a clever pass. And then, to be fair to Lamina had the game that I saw Lamina first this season when we went to Crystal Palace away, and he looked like we'd bought the best player in the world. He looked like we'd bought the player Pogba was meant to be, this kind of dominating box to box player. And to be fair, that was a great run and a great assist.
Yeah. And the finish, tidy game. Tadic knows how to do a tidy finish, doesn't he?
Yeah, I mean, one of my favourite Saints goals of recent years was the Tadic finish against West Ham a couple of seasons ago, where the ball went through to him and he kind of moved his body but caused the goalkeeper to fall on his butt.
Yeah.
Do you remember that goal? It was just a great, and then he went around the goalkeeper.
Was that when we won 3-1, I think?
Yeah, 3-0, 3-1. That was a really good finish as well.
My favourite Tadic goal was the one he scored against Everton earlier this season, where he did the little dink between his 2 feet. I think he took it from his right, pinged it onto his left, and then pinged it past it. I think it's just really, really clever, really sleight of hand.
Player. Yeah, it's quite interesting to say Mark Hughes saying that he was a player that when you're an opposition manager, you're worried about.
Yeah.
And I don't think Saints have many of those.
No.
And I think we need to really harness that now.
It's because he can do stuff. I mean, I really enjoyed this goal. Firstly, the fact it came from a Bournemouth corner. I thought the three main players involved all did some fantastic things. So Redmond, the touch, the flicking it over the Bournemouth attacker, and then finding Lamina was great. But the bizarre thing about Redmond is immediately we have three players kind of breaking. So Tadic is furthest ahead, Lamina is running, and Redmond has just gone past the Bournemouth player and passed on.
Redmond is our fastest player without any shadow of doubt.
And it's so bizarre because he passed the ball and you thought, yeah, nice one, Redmond, that was brilliant. And then he just kind of stopped, didn't he? He just slowed down to a canter.
Obviously knew it was going to happen. It was weird because you'd think he'd be like busting, like hell for leather.
Yeah.
But maybe he knew that if he runs alongside Tadic might attempt to pass to him and that will go wrong. So maybe it's just best he just hangs back.
I'm going to leave this to you, Tadic. And glad he did because it was a great goal. And then what's it like being in St Mary's when Southampton scored? Because I mean, Matthew, I feel sorry for him because he's not actually seen Southampton score a goal and being in the crowd. What's it like being in the crowd when that happens for the first time?
It was so fast, too. Because, I mean, it was off a corner, right? So you're like, they're going to score. I mean, this is what we do. We give up easy free headers on corners. So you're thinking we're about to go down 1-0. And you blink your eyes and we've scored.
Yeah.
And everybody's shocked. I mean, it's loud. I mean, the place erupts. But everybody's a little shocked, too, that we just went on a break and scored.
Yeah.
Like, that's not what Southampton does, It was amazing.
I think this goal is typical of the kind of goal that we just would never have scored under Pellegrino.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think what you would have seen is rather than someone, it would have almost been like Tadic running rather than Lamina.
Yeah.
It would have been like Tadic running and maybe like Cedric, you wouldn't have had like the actually attacking player, you wouldn't have been going for it. And it was a great goal, and we haven't really scored goals like that this season.
So there was a real sense of urgency there, wasn't there? Which actually helped that counter-attack happen. So, I mean, the rest of the second half, were there any more talking points that you can think of before the Bournemouth equaliser?
Yeah, there was the
save.
The save with his foot.
How good was that up close?
It was unbelievable. I thought it was in.
Yeah.
I mean, because you're seeing the ball, and granted, there's players a little bit in the way because we were pretty close down to the pitch. I mean, like row F or something.
Yeah.
But you see the shot, and you just think it's in. And all of a sudden, McCarthy's foot sticks out and saves it. I mean, it was unbelievable. It was pretty exciting to see that.
I mean, I think this is one of the amazing things about the difference between seeing it in real life and seeing it in television. So when you watch it on television, you get all the slow motion replays, and it's just like, oh yeah, well, obvious that was where the ball was going to go. So he put his foot out there, and it's like once it's slowed down, it's like, well, yeah, it's obvious when it's slowed down. And it's the same actually. Having given referees a whole load of stick, referees have to make a decision like that. In the game happening that fast, whether they see it or not, they have to make a decision. And it does happen really, really quick when you're there. And on the television, once you've watched it 10 times in super slow-mo, it's easy to know what the correct decision was or what you should have done. But yeah, I mean, there's so many times when you jump up because you think you've scored, and then suddenly a hand comes out of nowhere and it's saved. Which we'll get onto later. So yeah, I mean, great to see that. Loads of relief. You're thinking, oh, we're going to get into half time 1-0 up. This is going to be great. And then Saints do what Saints do.
It was a weird goal because it was almost like they thought that the whistle had gone. But Romeo, who I think most people would agree has not had his best season, just switches off. And Lewis Cook almost like can't believe that he's there to score this goal. And but it was so like horribly obvious, wasn't it? It was so like dispiriting. Like what more can you say?
So
we switch
someone
off.
Scoring unmarked at the back post.
Yeah, like with a simple chance. How many times this season? Duncan Alexander, if you're listening, tell us.
Yeah. So half time, it's 1-1. What's the mood amongst your friends and family, or the family of your friend?
No one's surprised.
No.
I mean, that goal, I mean, it was the most Saints thing ever, right?
Yeah.
That you give up the goal to tie it up going into halftime late, like it was the most predictable thing. And now you think, oh, great, Bournemouth comes from behind more than anybody. This match is over. Maybe we'll get another goal and force a draw, but everyone's assuming Bournemouth's going to get 2. I mean, Bournemouth is going to get 2. It was assumed, Yeah.
Second half starts, and I mean, Saints got a goal pretty quickly, wasn't it? About 7 or 8 minutes after the second half started. I think the 53rd minute, was it?
Yeah, I mean, and Tadic looked hungry, didn't he? He got that, he won that ball, and also it's the confidence, isn't it? It was a good goal he scored against Chelsea. This was a really, really clever goal, and one of the interviews he said he plays a lot of futsal. He still plays with friends, which he's probably not meant to do. But yeah, and it was a futsal, it was a toe poke.
But also, who are Tadic's friends in South? Like, I mean, all right, okay. So, I mean, listeners to the podcast who live in Southampton, you're wandering through the common. Do you see Dusan Tadic playing futsal with his the kind of Serbian crew that just happened to live in Southampton? I mean, write in saintsfcpodcast@gmail.com, @saintsfcpodcast on Twitter, or put a comment in the YouTube. Tell us if you've seen Tadic playing futsal or hacky sack, or basically kicking around a juggling ball, right?
But it was a really good goal, wasn't it? And it was a great run. Charlie Austin drew a defender away.
Nathan Redmond as well.
It's
funny because someone messaged me and was like, weren't you just screaming for Tadic to pass the ball to Austin throughout that? And actually, if you looked at the 3 players that were running towards the goal, if they were all equal players, you would give that to Redmond. Totally unmarked.
Yeah.
In Tadic's sight. I mean, cannot miss.
But Redmond can't buy a goal, can he?
No.
Poor guy. I mean, against Chelsea, the FA Cup, I thought that had gone in.
Yeah.
He smashed one, but yeah, he can't buy a goal.
But what a fantastic finish. And it's, not often that we see a toe poke in Premier League football, but it was
the art of the toe poke, wasn't it? Because it was a toe poke which was perfectly placed and perfectly positioned. Like, how on earth do you do that with a toe poke? It's beyond me.
I suppose the interesting thing about toe poke, because Cristiano Ronaldo scored that amazing free kick from a toe poke, didn't he? Is it puts that kind of fast, weird whip on the ball, which means it changes direction really quickly. And with Tadic's, it kind of went up and down very quickly in a very short space of time. Yeah. And it looked good to watch. It was a sexy goal.
It was a good. I mean, this isn't a season where we've scored many good goals, so we'll take these.
Yeah. And in fact, actually, scoring goals is something that we have actually been doing quite a lot in the last, since Mark Hughes joined.
Yeah, we scored 2 against Chelsea, 2 against Arsenal. 2 against Bournemouth.
1 disallowed against Chelsea in the semi-final. 2 against Wigan, I suppose.
They're having a go, aren't they?
Yeah. But it's nice to see the net ripple, isn't it?
The onion bag.
So take us through the rest of the game. There's some few more dramatic highlights, aren't there, Jason?
Oh, it was so stressful. I mean, because again, everybody's saying Bournemouth is going to score again.
Yeah.
We've got to get another goal. But then he subs on Højbjerg. And you're thinking, that's not an aggressive sub. We got to get another goal.
Yeah.
That's what everybody around you is thinking, which that's also kind of funny. It was amazing how often I heard the word useless yelled.
Yeah.
Anytime they passed the ball backwards, you'd hear somebody yell, useless, just useless, which there was nowhere to go with the ball. Of course he had to pass it back. So that was pretty entertaining to hear that quite a bit. But you're assuming we've got to get another goal.
Yeah.
you've got to get another goal. And the substitutions, to be fair, my friend's dad thought that they were reasonable substitutions. I still don't know that I understand them, but you're thinking you got to score again.
It was weird when he took Redmond off, brought Shane Long on, and then played Shane Long on the left wing when Tadic is a natural left-footed player.
Yeah.
And Shane Long is right-footed. That was when I was listening to it on Saints Play. That's when we sounded like we started to lose control of the game a little bit.
Did you feel that in the stadium as well, Jason?
A little bit. I mean, the tension's there. I mean, the tension is definitely there at that point. And I was wondering the same thing. I didn't know the thing about the left-footed. I don't, pay that close attention, I guess. But it didn't make sense that Shane Long was on the wing.
Yeah.
Shane Long is actually quite a good winger, isn't he? But he doesn't play on the left wing. It's just weird.
Yeah. There's definitely music going on upstairs, isn't there? I mean, that's the child monitor.
Yeah.
Even my 3-year-old has got up and turned on the radio and started listening to 1930s.
It's like vaudevillian music hall.
Either that or my wife's back and she's turned on the music. But that also seems unlikely. Anyway, strange things happening upstairs. I'm just going to let it fly at this point. So it's quite interesting, Jason, because I think when you email into the show, you're quite analytical in the way that you look at things, and you're always asking us quite probing questions, which is why we often read out your emails, because you tend to observe something which I think many of us have observed, and you pick out things that some of us have maybe observed and not quite noticed. When you're in the stadium, is that harder to do because you're so involved in the emotion?
Yeah, I think so. I'm also just sitting there making snarky comments to my friend the whole time, so that's going to affect my ability to calmly reflect on the match.
Are you making snarky comments about the Bournemouth players, Southampton players, or just the other fans that you see around you?
All of the above.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it was amazing to see the freedom, I guess overall, like the freedom that the players had to try and be aggressive. Like there were a couple times where right in front of me, Redmond tries to break down the sideline with the ball, and there's clearly no way he's going to get past the guy that's guarding him because he doesn't have the angle, but he tries anyway. Yeah. And I see that as a positive thing. I mean, most of the fans around me were pretty mad at Redmond. Yeah. I thought it was great. I mean, that the players are aggressive and attacking and trying to break through, even if it isn't always the best decision. Yeah. It's different than what you saw.
We
earlier.
Didn't do that, did we, under Pellegrino?
No.
They didn't. They didn't try things. And one of the things that was clear, Dave Merrington, who is an incredibly astute commentator on Saints Player, was saying that Saints got the first goal and then they kept attacking. Yeah, they kept going at Bournemouth, and that's something that we didn't do this season. We scored first actually quite a lot. That was the 8th game that we'd taken the lead, and the first one we'd actually won.
Wait, is that since Hughes or since this season?
This season,
yeah.
So I mean, that's incredible, isn't it? I think. Well, there's some stat. Like, it's one of the first games that we've
actually converted.
I think, or that we've conceded and then gone on to win. But it's the positivity. We've got good players. Let them play.
And you see that in Lamina the last couple matches. Yeah. I mean, I love Lamina. I think he's great. I know that some people have been frustrated with him and wonder if he's dedicated, and maybe that's it. I see a guy who lacked confidence. Yeah. Who has all the talent in the world, but just didn't quite believe, that he could do what he can do. And so he plays defensively. But it's clear that he can get past anybody, one-on-one with the ball. And the last couple of matches, you saw that with Hughes. He said, you're in the middle and you're going to press the ball forward. And we didn't have anybody who did that earlier in the season. I think I wrote in an email and talked about how they'd play patty cake with the ball around the edge and never get to the middle. With Lamina pressing forward, just a couple dribbles, it pulls the defense in and opens up the side a little bit more and just opens up space around the pitch. And we didn't have anybody doing that earlier in the season. And I thought that was huge. I love it. I think Lamina's, pretty good with the ball. So I like seeing that.
Yeah. On his day, he's our best player. I think he's the one player we've got. Like, when he plays like he did against Bournemouth, he's the one player we've got that you could see walking into like a top 4 team. Yeah. But we've got to have more of those days.
Yeah. I think Dusan Tadic is probably deserving of man of the match, but I think there's another guy who probably came pretty close. And Tell us about those last 5 minutes in the stadium and that game.
I mean, I almost had a heart attack. I mean, you're sitting there like I'm rubbing my chest, like I'm just watching the build up because Bournemouth is throwing everything. And I think it may have even been once it went into added time, which that was another odd thing. You don't get the clock telling you how many minutes it is. Luckily, I saw that in the first half, so I checked my watch real quick so I could make sure. But it's added time, and it opens up. And from where I'm sitting around middle of the pitch, I have the perfect angle where you see the shot, and it's curling. And the players have like parted ways almost, and the ball is curling towards the corner.
So this is like Moses at the Red Sea, and you know, was it the Israelites? That's the ball going towards the Southampton goal.
Yeah,
right?
And it's slow motion.
Yeah.
I mean, like in my mind, it's still slow motion, and the ball is curling in right into the corner, and there's no one there.
Yeah, and
then at the last possible moment, McCarthy's hand pops up and blocks it, and everybody goes nuts. I mean, I've seen some other angles from people. And it was not nearly as dramatic as from right there looking straight at the ball and it just curling in. I mean, it was unreal. I mean, that was the highlight of the match for me.
I mean, where would we be this season? And also like the way he punches the ball.
Yeah.
You know, the way he commands
the
area.
Right towards the end, yeah.
You know, like he gets like you can imagine like the defenders must have have little confidence, but they must look at him and they must, you know, like you must go like, you know, at least we've got a guy behind us. Like with Forster, like who has a terrible loss of confidence. You just never got that feeling. And you know, he was terrible with crosses and his shots. Like you kind of wonder, like, what were you doing? What bit of goalkeeping? By the end of Forster sort of running the team, like what bit of goalkeeping was he good at? But as McCarthy, that save was just a worldie.
It's the gum chewing.
Yeah,
you don't see it in person, but on TV, he's just smacking his gum, and like every save, no matter how good it was, he just is kind of almost smiling. Yeah, chewing his gum. I love it. I love it.
He could go to the World Cup, couldn't he?
It looked like he's keeper. I can't, to be honest, I can't see him going to the World Cup. I think, and if you look at, is it Alexander Pope at Burnley? He's just been absolutely
Nick Pope.
Is it Nick Pope? I can't remember. Yeah,
Pope.
Yeah, Pope at Burnley is. What I've seen of him has been brilliant, and he's going to take Joe Hart despite everything. Okay, so fantastic. Saints have beaten Bournemouth 2-1. What a difference a result like this makes. I mean. When the final whistle came, I felt elated. You know what? One of my mates kind of messaged me earlier in the week. He was saying, what a crazy season our team's having. He's a Liverpool fan, so he was like feeling pretty thrilled. And I was just like, I was like, I am through with football. Like, you know, I watch this group of players every week that, you know, aren't putting in the shift. You know, they're getting paid millions of pounds. I was saying, you know, that, Virgil van Dijk, you know, typifies the whole, you know, the fact that he could spend a whole half of the season not putting a shift in just because he wanted to get that move. I was feeling pretty miserable about it. And then by the time we'd beaten Bournemouth, I was checking all the fixtures. I was like, thinking, oh, maybe we could beat Everton. Maybe we can beat Swansea. Oh my God, I think we might just stay in the Premier League. You know, it changes everything. And hopefully the mood that I've got from watching Southampton against Bournemouth and us actually winning a game, seeing a game out, Could this be, is this the turning point? Is this the thing that's going to get us out of trouble?
It has to be, doesn't it? I mean, I think there was a great video. I think it was Adam Blackmore posted it, but then I couldn't see it save it. I went to show someone. And he was sat behind the bench. And there is that footage that Saints have put on their Twitter feed of you know, like Mark Hughes going mad, and then you see Charlie Austin and do something.
Yeah, it wasn't Adam Blackmore. I did retweet it though, so if you go back through the Saints FC podcast Twitter, you can find it.
It's really worth watching. And I think what you do see there is you do see something that's been lacking, not just this season, but all of last season, which was passion.
Yeah.
Like a real excitement. I think that we weren't able to conjure except at Wembley and at big European games. And even some of them we couldn't get motivated for. There was a sense of passion, and I think that one thing I think Hughes has done is I think he's got his team, and I think there are players you'll never see in a Saints shirt again. You'll never see Boufal, you'll never see Carrillo. I think he's got players that he obviously believes that when it matters, they're going to put in a shift.
Yeah. You know what I think Saints should do is just avoid making record signings. I mean, the amount of record signings that we've had have just been a complete waste of space.
If I can just very briefly, I was reading this book called The Numbers Game, which is two economists, and their whole theory is that you shouldn't buy big star name players because the nature of football is that individual mistakes are very important. Instead, football teams would be more successful if they spent money improving their worst players, improving their weak links. And I think you look at Saints, the amount of mistakes we made this season. We didn't need a £20 million centre forward. We needed a...
Well, we did, but not Carige. We actually probably needed a £40 million centre forward, and we probably needed a couple of 20 million centre backs.
We're doing all right now, though, without that £20 million forward. You know, we're scoring more goals now without the £20 million forward than we were with him. And I think that, but we needed earlier season, we needed a better goalkeeper. We needed a better centre back. And it's an interesting theory that mistakes are what have cost Saints a lot. We've not been smashed much this season. It's just stupid errors.
Yeah. Yeah, I see that. I definitely see that point.
Well, and that was the argument for keeping Pellegrino because we're so close, right? XG.
Yeah.
I know how much you love XG, Tom, right?
Still, I can't even spell it, let alone understand it.
You can't spell it. I mean, come on. Should we bring up some XG stats here? We don't have to get onto XG, but I did notice that our XG against Bournemouth, it was good. This. You know, we
beat the XG, didn't we?
Yeah, we beat them on XG, 1.73 to 1.02. So that makes sense. You know,
XG works.
XG works. It proves the point there. What we're going to look at the whole league table, are we, about this XG point? Because you quite like the XG. Is that right, Jason, or is it? Am I getting you totally wrong on that?
I think it adds an interesting data point, talking point.
I can't seem to get the league table. Oh no!
Although to be fair, statistics like XG are for teams that lose.
Yeah,
it's like I was talking to my friend about Shane Long. People talk about how great he is because he works hard, but they only say that because he doesn't score.
Yeah,
no one talks about how hard Lionel Messi works because he's clearly fabulous.
Well, Gary Lineker never worked hard, did he?
Yeah, Letitia isn't known for running super fast. So that's the thing, right? You only talk about those things if you're not actually very good.
It's just like they're kind of little fragments of some sort of distant hope.
They're also, let's face it, it's the bare minimum. I love Shane Long, this is not a criticism, but working hard is kind of the bare minimum thing you have to do.
You would expect with that sort of money that people might work hard. Yeah.
Anyway, it's not a criticism of Shane Long, who we love.
I do love Shane Long. I didn't like him for a long time, but I've come to love Shane Long.
He's great.
Yeah. Just going back on this, if Southampton had scored all the goals that they should have scored, as in the expected goals, and conceded all the goals they should have conceded, as in the expected against, they would be in the top half of the table, 10th. So, it means that they probably weren't wrong to spend £20 million on the forward line, but perhaps, almost certainly they got the wrong guy. It was just weird. It was a Pellegrino signing at a time when Pellegrino's time was clearly up.
It's but I think as well, more important than the signing is that again, we've spoken about this loads of times, but we had players out of that team under Pellegrino that should have been playing. Ward-Prowse, Højbjerg, Austin, McCarthy.
Can we talk about Premier League Great Escape heroes of the past? And this is going to be relevant for the preview of the Everton game. Jason, it's okay. You don't have to answer this question because I don't think you've been supporting Saints long enough to have gone through what we're all going through right now. But Tom and I have experienced it.
I've experienced this on teletext.
Quite a few occasions.
Where you watch the game on teletext.
Let's talk about who are your favourite Great Escape heroes?
For me, it has to be the Latvian Michael Owen.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And wasn't that against Everton as well?
I'm really not sure. Marian Pahars was a sensation when he came on.
And he just... I think that was when we were in deep doggy doo-doo.
Yeah.
And Pahars, who no one had ever heard of, just kind of came out of nowhere and was a great little goal scorer.
What's the name of the guy who joined Saints for
Mickey Evans.
Mickey Evans, that's it. I was thinking Mickey Adams, but yeah, Mickey Evans.
He had like an incredible run of form and they never did anything.
Yeah. That was it. He just came in for a dozen games at the end of the season.
He looked like he should be in Shed 7.
Yeah.
And then...
do tweet us at Saints FC Podcast for your favourite Great Escape heroes. You know what? Who my favourite is? I think Hassan Kashloul. In a way, I know he wasn't totally the Great Escape, but that Great Escape season, the Delhurst Park, everyone wearing the Fez hats.
Yeah,
there's
Delhurst
a certain
Park.
romanticism, isn't there, about Hassan Kashloul and keeping us up. But The reason why I bring this up is because one of our great escape heroes was Kevin Davis, and when he came onto the scene, he was just absolutely sensational for Saints. He was scoring goals for fun. Was he a teenager? You know,
he was at Chesterfield, wasn't he? I think he was one of our most highly regarded young players, and I think it was Chesterfield had a really good FA Cup run, the Spirits.
Yeah,
and he was sort of the star of their FA Cup run at like 17, and then Saints bought him.
Yeah.
For a decent amount of money then. It's quite a bold and ambitious signing for Saints at the time, I think.
But what an absolute signing. And the reason why I've brought up Kevin Davis is because we're going to Goodison Park at the weekend in a real proper relegation. If we win this is probably going to be a great escape type situation.
It'd be one of those I was there ones.
Yeah. I'm not going to be there. I'm going to be DJing at my brother-in-law's wedding. Jason, you're going to be back in Florida. Tom, I don't know what you got, some sort of pickling.
I've got a pickling course.
Or is that's the Man City
week.
game?
No, I just have no excuse.
Yeah. I actually went up to Goodison recently. I say recently, it was probably about 2 or 3 years ago, and we lost 1-0. It was just a boring, terrible game of football.
It's a long way to go, isn't it, to lose 1-0?
It's fun city though, Liverpool. But we've not actually won at Goodison Park since 1997, which was when Kevin Davis scored that famous goal where he dribbled it around literally every Everton player and then put it in the back of the net. We could do with that again, I think.
Oh, you got that means we're due a win. That doesn't mean anything at all. But
21 years.
We have to be positive.
Yeah,
we have to be Everton, who have just come off, admittedly, a very good result against Huddersfield. Their home form is not great. The atmosphere at Goodison is certainly not very good. We can win.
Yeah, I mean, I hope that the Everton fans are just turning on Allardyce. If we show a bit of passion, maybe the Everton fans will turn on their team, and we can end up getting a point or two or
Charlie Austin
three.
scored that goal, didn't he?
We can't get 2 points, so that's impossible. But
I'll take 2, though.
Yeah,
I'll take 2 points.
Although the last time you said that about a club was West Ham, so
we don't talk about that one,
Jason,
okay? That is.
Please don't bring that up.
That is verboten. Sorry, it's off menu.
Yeah. In fact, we've only had 1 point at Goodison Park in the last 5 years, which when Sadio Mane got an equaliser there. I mean, I think we've just got to go into this thinking it's due. Our time has come. Mark Hughes has got the boys playing better than they have done for most of the season. We can score goals. Everton have been pretty shambolic at times. I mean, they're playing the kind of turgid Allardyce football that really turns the Everton fans off. They want to see something a bit more attractive.
And they've got a lot of players as well that are obviously looking either towards the beach or the World Cup.
Yeah.
They've got nothing to play for.
No. So, I mean, hopefully we can do it.
We need to just set about them, don't we? We need to tear into them.
Are we going to dare to predict?
Well, I'll obviously predict a win because that's what I do.
Yeah. Jason, what do you think? Saints versus Everton?
I always predict a 2-1 win.
For Southampton or for Everton?
Southampton.
Very
always.
pragmatic.
Okay.
John?
I'm going to go for a... I'm going to go for a 2-2. It's going to be thrilling and heartbreaking, but it's going to leave everything on the game against Swansea.
I think McCarthy's going to make the last-minute save again.
Yeah.
2-1.
I'm not sure my heart can handle it going into the Swansea game. Genuinely, is that the Swansea game on TV? I don't know. But who knows what's going to happen? I think it just depends on what Saints turn up.
Yeah, I think basically what's going to be happening is I'm going to be DJing at my brother-in-law's wedding, and whatever happens, this could actually genuinely affect the most important day of my brother-in-law's life, because if my phone gives me a notification saying that we've lost it, I'm just going to play Radiohead for the whole evening. Yeah, exactly. And everyone's just going to go crying. And if we win, I think I'm just going to play hardcore Gabba techno for the whole night.
The stick song.
140 beats per minute. I'm just going to go crazy.
Do the stick song. Play the stick song all night.
Yeah. Then we've got the game against Swansea. It's so important, but I think we almost can't rate it until we've seen what's going to happen against Everton.
I think you'll know, won't you? But I almost think we'll know.
Yeah.
Come Saturday evening, if we
what's going to happen, whether we're going to stay up or whether we're going to go down.
I do think we will. I think if you look at our result, Swansea's result, Huddersfield's result, Stoke's result, you're going to know a lot by that time, aren't you? And I just pray that we can that we can take the spirit of Bournemouth and I think he's pushed out some negative vibes in that squad.
Yeah. So let's have a look at the league table. At the moment, we have Southampton and Stoke and West Brom all in the relegation zone. I've excluded West Brom for the sake of this because I don't think they're going to get out of it.
I tell you what, though.
I mean, they could, couldn't they? I mean, this is the scary thing. So, I mean, we got West Brom on 28 points. They got 2 games left, so the maximum they could get is 34, which could potentially be enough to take them above ourselves, Stoke and Swansea, if none of us win any remaining games. So we've got Stoke City on 30 points. We've got Southampton on 32, making up the relegation spots. Just above us, we have Swansea City on 33 points. We have Huddersfield on 35 points. We have West Ham United on 35 points.
If there is a God, he will give me West Ham.
And we have Brighton on 37 points. And I think Watford, Bournemouth, Palace all on 38. I think you can forget about them. I think I
don't think you see Brighton going down either. I mean, I'd love to know the extraordinary run of results it would take for Brighton to go down.
Well, I don't think it's going to be that extraordinary because they've got what? They've got 37 points now, so they've had 2 draws. Their remaining 3 fixtures are against top 4 sides.
Okay, that's interesting.
So they could potentially not get another point.
So the fixture gods have been quite evil to Brighton and Huddersfield.
Yeah. Huddersfield are the next team which I think are in... I think Huddersfield are in serious danger here. They have Chelsea, Arsenal and Man City.
And which of those are away and at home? I think, obviously Man City is...
I mean, does it even matter? I mean, they lost to Everton at home. If they can lose to Everton at home, they can certainly lose to Chelsea, Arsenal and Man City. It just really probably depends on whether Chelsea is still going for it, whether Man City is still going for it.
Chelsea's still fighting for a Champions League spot.
Yeah, and Arsenal, aren't they? I mean, it's not over for Arsenal
Well,
yet.
and Arsenal's playing for Wengers last season, and then Man City's chasing the record. So all 3 of those clubs have something to play for.
Yeah, and they've got skin in the game, and we do have Everton. You know, Everton is our game that has nothing riding on it for Everton.
West Ham United, they have Leicester City, Manchester United and Everton. I mean, they could conceivably get 9 points out of that. They could conceivably get 0 points out of that. Palace, they're out of it. Swansea, well, they have Saints and Stoke. And Bournemouth, yeah. I kind of expect they'll beat Bournemouth.
I don't know, it's at Bournemouth though.
Yeah. I mean, it would be really good if Bournemouth could do us a favour there.
Bournemouth aren't free of this yet. I mean, it's highly unlikely they're going to go down.
Yeah.
So Bournemouth know that one win is them safe.
Yeah.
And also probably sees them as top performing team in the South Coast. So
yeah,
I think they'll go for it against... Bournemouth are a good team as well.
Yeah. I mean, Bournemouth could secure their safety at the Vitality Stadium.
And greatly help ours.
Yeah. That'd be great. And, I mean, that Saints Swansea game, that is absolutely vital, isn't it? I think if we beat Swansea, Swansea they could get points against Bournemouth. They could very easily get points against Stoke. I mean, Swansea could well lose to us and still get out of trouble. But it would be very, very good to take 3 points off them. And
what we want is West Ham.
Yeah.
So whatever permutation of results it takes to get West Ham down, that's what we want.
Yeah.
Sorry, West Ham fans, but
I actually think Huddersfield are the most likely.
Yeah, I agree. I watched the highlights of their game and they look kind of devoid of confidence. And it was in the pub on Sunday with a Huddersfield fan and she goes to every single game, and she's optimistic, but like realistically they're struggling to defend and they score the fewest goals I think in the league. So
how are they going to get points against Arsenal, Man City and Chelsea? Yeah,
I mean, you wouldn't have thought so, would you?
No. Let's hope that Huddersfield stay on 35 points and that Southampton can get 3 points
And
or
also
more from the last
our
three
goal
games.
difference.
So much better.
We were on, I think, minus 19. I think Huddersfield was minus 29. We've got phenomenally good goal difference. Much better than anyone else.
Yeah. I mean, if we can get 3 points more than Huddersfield in the remaining 3 fixtures, we will stay up.
Yeah, I think that's a fair summary.
Yeah. Although potentially Stoke could stay up. They've got Swansea and Palace.
God.
Yeah. So we also need to keep 3 points there. Which
Palace
is
are good.
basically, if we win against Everton and Swansea, we're totally safe. If we get a win and a draw, I think we're safe. If we get a win in one of those games, there's a chance, a minute chance, that we could stay up with 3 more points. Are we going to do it? That's my question to you, Tom Parker.
Yeah.
Jason, are we going to stay in the Premier League?
Yes.
Not convincing.
Well, we won, but to be fair, we were a little lucky.
Yeah.
But you got to have luck.
Right.
Everyone's got luck.
Good teams make their own luck.
Someone clever said that earlier.
Yeah.
John.
I think we're going to do it. Oh my God, what have we done? Should I just say we're not going to do it so that we don't...
We have to do it, though, don't they?
Yeah.
I mean,
So we
this
don't
group of players
jinx
has
it.
to do it. They've got no choice. And I do think Saturday seemed to be a turning point.
Yeah.
And let's push on. Let's go to Everton. Let's shut the crowd up early. Let's get them booing Allardyce, get them booing that team, and bully them.
Let's get 3 points against Everton, and my God, the world's going to feel like a better place, isn't it?
The one thing that makes me nervous is that we beat them 4-1.
No,
Wasn't
earlier
that-
this season.
That was early
December?
season. Yeah, sorry.
In
Yeah.
January?
No, that was November. It was the week
November, yeah.
I got engaged. That
Yeah.
was the last
A
home
high
win.
point of the season.
Yeah.
That makes me nervous
Yeah.
because they may want revenge.
Let's see.
Anyway, so on that bombshell, Saints are staying up. I think it's time to wrap up the podcast for another week.
I did write a poem about the match.
Yes, you did.
This is gonna be
I totally
good.
forgot about this. Jason. Right. I think we should say our goodbyes and we'll pan out to the sounds of
Serene
Jason
sound.
reading his poem about his game at Southampton. So, cheerio from me.
So thanks very much for listening from me.
Yep, thank you.
Yeah. And do get in touch and tell us what you think about Jason's poem and all the other things that
If
you've
you're a
heard on the
literary
Saints
agent
Football
and
Guys.
you're interested,
Yeah.
he's available.
Yeah, I think if you hear him on this podcast, do we get some sort of cut on that if in the
It's gotta
future?
be worth
yeah.
20%, surely.
Yeah. All right, let's see, Jason. Go take it away.
The crowd was stirred and sad, except the lone lad whose voice rang bad. Put in Shane Long, you haggard old cad. Little did the boy realize Shane Long was in the team, but despite his fuss and fight, there was not a goal to glean. To Austin his attention then turned, all for a goal he did yearn. But the ball his boot could not find, and so his ire burned. But as the pitch roared and rayed, the lad more concerned became, and though the team was fighting hard, no victory was there to claim. But then arose a giant most grand. Dusan Tadic rang through the stand. As goal and goal he drilled home, with his might and skill displayed, all the crowd did cheer him on again, after months his name they flayed. Hope arose within the lad as the pitch more heated became, and so he clung with all his will to the thought of a victory thrill. But one task was left to be done. The defense wobbled and shaked, and though the subs came on in force, the chance of a win seemed faked. Then we saw the man once forgot, who smacked his gum resolute, and in the waning minutes he cried, as his hand sang the song of a lute. Victory was in that save, and save a season it did. This match was more than just a game, it saved a city it did. And all cried out in voices one, we march on, we march on.